What would you do if one moment shattered everything you thought you knew about love, trust, and family? This is my story of betrayal, desire, and consequences I never saw coming. Before we begin, I want to warn you that this story contains mature themes. It deals with the challenges of new motherhood, family relationships, and infidelity. If these topics make you uncomfortable, you might want to stop watching now. I turned 18, but it didn't feel like much changed, except everything did. I couldn't explain it, but I felt different. Restless. Like there was this pressure inside me that wouldn't let up. I'd sit in my room, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was what adulthood felt like, confusing and heavy. My friends all seemed to have it figured out. They had girlfriends, plans for college, and parties to talk about. Meanwhile, I felt like I was waiting for something to happen, something big. At home, things felt normal. Too normal. My parents have always been perfect. Everyone says so. My mom, KHANI, is the kind of woman who lights up a room just by walking into it. She smiles at strangers and remembers their names the next time she sees them. My dad, Ulises, is quieter, but you know he's the type who gets things done. Together, they're what people point to when they talk about relationship goals. I used to want what they had. Now I wasn't so sure. People love my parents. They're the couple everyone notices at cookouts. My mom always makes too much food, and my dad tells stories that keep people laughing for hours. They look happy. And maybe they are. But lately, I started seeing things I couldn't unsee. Like how my dad gets home later and later, and my mom barely seems to notice. Or how she laughs a little too hard at texts that light up her phone. I told myself it didn't mean anything. Maybe I just wanted it to mean something. I think that's what scared me the most, the idea that maybe my parents weren't as perfect as everyone thought. And if they weren't perfect, what did that mean for me? I hated how much time I spent in my head. I'd sit in class and tune out the teacher, thinking about things I couldn't say out loud. Like how I felt invisible sometimes. Or how I didn't know if I'd ever feel comfortable in my own skin. My friends talked about girls like it was easy, like the words just came to them. For me, it wasn't like that. I wanted to connect with someone, but I didn't know how. Every time I tried, it felt forced, and I'd end up back in my room, scrolling through my phone, wishing I was someone else. I started noticing things more. How couples looked at each other, how hands lingered too long, how my dad's arm around my mom's waist always seemed so natural. I wondered if I'd ever feel that kind of ease with someone. Or if something was wrong with me for wanting it so badly. It was late. I don't even remember why I was awake. I think I just needed water. I didn't mean to hear anything. I was walking past their room when I noticed the door was cracked open. At first, I wasn't sure what I was hearing. Then I was. And I froze. I should have walked away. I should have turned around and gone back upstairs. But I didn't. I looked. And the second I did, I wished I hadn't. They were together, my parents. But not in a way I'd ever seen before. It wasn't love the way I thought about it. It was something else, something raw that made my stomach twist. I couldn't breathe. I wanted to stop watching, but my feet wouldn't move. It felt wrong, like I'd crossed into a space that wasn't mine, but I couldn't pull myself out of it. Then my mom looked up. I don't know if she saw me, or if she was just looking toward the door, but I panicked. My chest was tight, and my legs finally worked again. I ran upstairs and slammed my door. I sat on my bed, staring at the wall, waiting for the feeling to go away. But it didn't. It stayed. And the worst part? I didn't know what scared me more. The fact that I saw it or the fact that part of me didn't want to stop looking. I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. Every time I closed my eyes, the image came back, too sharp, too loud. My mom's face. The way she was moaning so loud, the way she looked up, almost like she saw me but didn't react. I wanted to believe she hadn't seen me. I needed to believe it. But it didn't matter. The shame stuck to me like sweat. I couldn't scrub it off, no matter how hard I tried to forget. I stayed in my room as much as I could, barely speaking to anyone. Every time my mom passed by, I felt my chest tighten. And when my dad asked if I was okay, I mumbled something about being tired. I couldn't look either of them in the eye. Meals were the worst. Sitting across from them at the table, pretending like nothing had changed, pretending like I hadn't seen too much of them, too much of myself. I pushed food around on my plate and waited for excuses to leave. But the silence didn't make it better. It made it worse. The more I avoided them, the heavier the guilt became. I felt dirty, like I'd ruined something that was never supposed to be touched. And the worst part? I didn't know who I was mad at. Them? Myself? I hated every second of it. The knock on my door came when I wasn't ready. I jumped out of bed like I'd been caught doing something wrong, even though I wasn't. Not this time. It was my mom. She stepped inside before I could say anything, shutting the door behind her. "You've barely said 2 words in days," she said. Her voice was soft, but it didn't calm me. If anything, it made my stomach twist even harder. I kept staring at the wall, hoping she'd get the hint and leave. She didn't. Did something happen? Yes. I saw you. I saw too much. I shook my head. She stepped closer. "Ayan, I need you to talk to me. Whatever it is, you can tell me." I couldn't breathe. The room felt too small, and her voice was too calm, too gentle, like she already knew what I was hiding. I swallowed hard and said the only thing I could think of. "I didn't mean to." She tilted her head. "Didn't mean to what?" I looked up at her, and that's when it hit me, she already knew. The realization made my chest tighten. I opened my mouth to explain, but no words came out. She sat down on the edge of my bed and reached for my hand. "It's okay," she said, and those 2 words made everything worse. "It's not okay," I blurted out. My voice cracked, but I didn't care. "I shouldn't have," she cut me off, squeezing my hand. "You're not in trouble, Ayan. I know what you saw, and it's not what you think." Her words didn't calm me. They just made me more confused. "It's normal," she said, and I wanted to scream. "You're at that age where curiosity is natural. And seeing something like that, it's uncomfortable, but it doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I stared at her, waiting for her to realize how wrong it all sounded, but she didn't. She just kept talking, like she was trying to fix something that wasn't broken. I wanted to yell at her to stop. Instead, I just sat there, silent and shaking. I don't know what I expected her to say next, but it wasn't this. She let go of my hand and leaned back, like she was preparing herself for what came next. "There's something you don't know," she said. Her voice dropped, like she was sharing a secret. "Your dad and we're not like other couples." I didn't move. She hesitated for a second, then kept going. "We're in an open relationship." The words hit me so hard I forgot how to breathe. I blinked at her, waiting for her to laugh or take it back, but she didn't. She just kept looking at me like this was supposed to make sense. "What?" The word barely made it out of my mouth. "It's not what you think," she said quickly, like that would fix it. "It's something we agreed on a long time ago. We trust each other completely, and it works for us." I shook my head, trying to process it. "You're serious?" I asked, even though I already knew the answer. She nodded. My mind was spinning. Everything I thought I knew about my parents, about their love, their marriage, felt fake. "Why are you telling me this?" She smiled, like this was supposed to be comforting. Because you're old enough to understand now. And I don't want you to feel guilty about what you saw. It's okay to be curious, Ayun. It's okay to feel things you don't understand. She moved her hand, slowly, from my knee to my inner thigh. I couldn't listen anymore. I stood up and moved to the other side of the room, putting space between us. This isn't normal, I said, my voice shaking. Her expression softened. It's normal for us. I wanted to scream. I wanted to leave. But I couldn't do either, so I just stood there, staring at her while my whole world fell apart. She left the room a few minutes later, but the damage was already done. By the way, if you've made it this far into the story, thank you for sticking with me. I know it's not an easy thing to hear, and I appreciate you listening. If you're finding this video interesting, or if you think there's someone who could relate to what I'm sharing, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe. It really helps me keep sharing stories like this and lets me know I'm not alone out here. Alright, let's get back to it. I thought things would get better after that night. I thought my mom would give me space to breathe, to sort out the mess in my head. I was wrong. The next morning, she acted like nothing had happened. She smiled when she saw me, asked if I wanted eggs or pancakes like it was just another day. But it wasn't. I sat at the kitchen table, barely touching my food, while she moved around the room like everything was fine. I tried not to look at her. I couldn't stop. She wasn't dressed the way she normally was in the mornings, no baggy sweats or oversized shirts. Instead, she wore shorts that showed too much leg and a tank top that hugged her in ways I couldn't ignore. I hated myself for noticing. She leaned against the counter, sipping coffee and watching me. You okay? I nodded too quickly. Yeah. Fine. Her eyes lingered, like she didn't believe me. You know you can talk to me, right? She set her cup down and walked over. Her hand rested lightly on my shoulder, but it felt heavier than it should have. About anything. I swallowed hard and stared at my plate. I'm serious, she said, her voice softer now. You don't have to feel weird about what you saw. It's just part of life, Ayun. It doesn't mean you've done anything wrong. Her hand slid down my arm, slow and deliberate. My chest tightened. I wanted to pull away, but I couldn't. My body wouldn't move. She squeezed my arm before letting go. I just don't want you to feel ashamed of how you're feeling. It's normal. Normal. That word kept circling in my head long after she walked away. I locked myself in my room after breakfast. I sat on the bed, head in my hands, trying to make sense of what was happening. It wasn't right. It couldn't be. But the way she talked about it, the way she looked at me, it made me question everything I thought I knew. Maybe she was right. Maybe this was normal, and I was the one making it weird. But then I thought about the way her hand lingered. The way she touched my arm like it meant something else. No. I couldn't let myself believe that. I stood up and paced the room, my heart pounding. I needed to clear my head. I needed to stop thinking about her, about any of it. But I couldn't. I kept hearing her voice, telling me it was okay to feel things. Okay to be curious. I hated how much sense it made when she said it. I hated that part of me wanted to believe her. I grabbed my phone, thinking maybe I could distract myself. But even as I scrolled through social media, my mind drifted back to the way she looked at me. The way her shirt dipped just low enough to make me notice. I slammed the phone down and lay back on the bed, staring at the ceiling. Was this what she wanted? Was she trying to get inside my head, to make me see her differently? Or was I just imagining it? I couldn't tell anymore. And that scared me more than anything. I couldn't get her out of my head. No matter how hard I tried, the thoughts stayed. The looks. The touches. The words she said that didn't feel like something a mother should say. I told myself I was imagining it. That I was overthinking. That I was twisting her words into something they weren't. But I didn't believe that. Not really. The days blurred together, but the tension only grew. I avoided her as much as I could, but even that didn't help. She didn't make it easy. The way she dressed. The way she lingered when she talked to me, leaning in just a little too close. She never said anything outright, but it was always there. In the pauses, in the silences. I hated how much I noticed. And I hated myself even more for not being able to stop. I wanted to tell her to stop. To say something that would make it all go back to normal. But every time I opened my mouth, the words stuck in my throat. Part of me didn't want her to stop. That was the worst part. I'd lie awake at night, replaying every moment in my head, wishing I could just shut it off. But I couldn't. And the longer it went on, the harder it became to keep my thoughts from spiraling. I started wondering if she wanted me to feel this way, if maybe this was her way of testing me, of seeing how far I'd go. It made me feel sick, but it didn't stop me from wondering. It happened so fast. I didn't plan it. I didn't think about it. I just acted. The house was quiet. My dad was at work, and my mom was in her room. I don't know why I went in. I just did. I told myself I was just going to talk to her. To clear the air. To put an end to whatever this was. But that wasn't true. I stepped inside, and she looked up at me like she'd been waiting. Like she knew I'd come. She smiled. That was all it took. I don't remember what I said, if I said anything at all. I just remember the way my heart pounded in my chest, the way my hands shook. And then it happened. She moved close to me, seduced me, and took off my clothes. I couldn't stop her. She pushed me to the bed and climbed over me. It was the longest time I've ever had. But the moment it was over, the weight of it hit me. I felt sick. My stomach twisted, and my chest felt like it was caving in. She didn't look upset. If anything, she seemed satisfied. But I couldn't feel anything except regret. I wanted to go back. To undo it. To take it all back and pretend it never happened. But I couldn't. And I knew nothing would ever be the same. I couldn't look at her. Every time I tried, I felt it all over again. The weight, the shame, the heat that wouldn't go away no matter how many times I tried to push it down. She didn't seem bothered. That was the part that made it worse. She carried on like nothing had changed. She smiled at me at breakfast, asked about school, laughed at my dad's jokes like she hadn't just turned my world upside down. And me? I couldn't even eat. I started skipping meals, waiting until they were both out of the kitchen before grabbing something quick and heading straight back to my room. I buried myself in my phone, my music, my games, anything to block out the sound of her voice or the sight of her walking by my door like she didn't have a care in the world. But the more I avoided her, the more she seemed to notice. She started checking on me, asking if I was okay, if I needed anything. She even knocked on my door late at night, her voice soft and almost playful, like she was teasing me. It made my skin crawl. I wanted to tell her to stop. I wanted to scream at her, to ask her why she thought this was okay. But I didn't. I couldn't. Because no matter how much I hated myself for what happened, there was this sick part of me that didn't want to let it go. And that scared me more than anything. I started spending more time outside the house. At first, it helped. Being around friends, laughing, and pretending like my life was normal gave me something to hold on to. But it never lasted. I'd sit there, smiling and nodding at whatever they were talking about, while my mind kept drifting back. Back to the house. Back to her. I hated it. I tried to distract myself, video games, movies, even late-night walks just to clear my head. But no matter what I did, it always found a way back in. And the worst part? I started feeling angry. Angry at her for acting like nothing happened. Angry at myself for letting it happen. Angry at my dad, for trusting her. I couldn't be around him without feeling like a fraud. Every time he talked to me, asked me how I was doing, or gave me advice about life, I wanted to disappear. I felt like he could see it on me. The guilt sat so heavy on my chest that sometimes I thought he already knew. That he was just waiting for me to say it. One night at dinner, he asked me why I'd been so quiet lately. "You've been acting different," he said. "Something wrong?" My mom looked at me across the table, her eyes steady but unreadable. I couldn't speak. I mumbled something about school and shoved food in my mouth to keep from saying more. But I knew he didn't believe me. He kept watching me, like he was trying to figure me out. And I knew it was only a matter of time before the guilt broke me completely. I thought leaving home would fix everything. College was supposed to be a fresh start, new people, new places, and no reminders of what happened. I packed my bags and told myself I was ready to move on. But I wasn't. No matter how far I went, it followed me. I tried dating, but nothing ever stuck. Every time a girl got too close, I pulled away. I told myself it wasn't the right time or that I wasn't ready for anything serious. The truth was, I didn't know how to let anyone in. I kept waiting for something to go wrong, for someone to look at me the way my mom did that day and see through everything I tried to hide. It wasn't just relationships. It was everything. Trust. Intimacy. Even friendships felt harder than they should have been. I kept people at arm's length, afraid that if they got too close, they'd see what I didn't want them to see, the part of me that still felt broken. I didn't talk about it. Not once. Not to my friends. Not to anyone I dated. It became this thing I carried, heavier than it had any right to be, and I couldn't figure out how to set it down. The first time I visited after moving out, it felt like stepping into a time capsule. Nothing had changed. My parents still acted like they were perfect. My mom still smiled too easily.